and welcome to One Sustainability. One Sustainability features entrepreneurs, founders, and business leaders who have sustainability as a core component of their overall strategy, presenting on cutting-edge topics and the latest industry developments. Our goal is to educate and inform the global business and entrepreneurial communities on the importance of sustainability and to promote and support sustainable business growth all around the world. Today, we're very pleased to welcome leading global sustainability executive and entrepreneur, Vikas Chhajer. Vikas heads business strategy, sustainability, and technological advancements of the Gemini Group. Gemini is one of the world's largest circular economy market makers, recycling over 700 million pounds of plastic waste, 50 million tires, 1.5 million refrigerators, and 300,000 cars every year, which is a total of 2 million metric tons every year from 32 offices all around the world. Vikas, it is a great pleasure to have you here with us today to hear more about plastics being a waste or a resource full of opportunities. Thank you and welcome to One Sustainability.
Thanks a lot, Stelios. Thanks for the flattering introduction that you have given me. And hello, everyone. My name is Vikas Chhajer, as Stelios has already said. I will just share my screen and let's start with my presentation. Great. So I chose my presentation topic to be plastics. It's a waste or it's a resource full of opportunity. So I will start with who am I, a small introduction about me. Thanks, Stelios, for my introduction anyway. I head sustainability and strategy for the largest recycler in the world. That's Gemini Corporation. I am an ESG certified board director. Originally, I was an MBA in finance. I worked in equity research. I traded in equities also, but I landed in recycling 7 years ago, and I helped creating the biggest circular economy market maker in the world. We recycle 2 million tons of material every year. Now, why I focus on circular economy? Because there is a huge misconception that recycling is just having machinery and recycling the plastics or steel or paper. But recycling includes a lot of steps. That's what we call circular economy. So when we buy a plastic bottle from the market and we, let's say, throw it in a dustbin, the entire process has a lot of steps. It is the collection, it is the sorting, it is the baling, it is the grinding. Recycling is just a small part of the entire circular economy process. We have to then granulate it again, which has to be manufactured to recycled plastics, which will be used as a raw material again to make that plastic bottle or any other type of plastic. Plastic is a big example because that's one of the biggest threats to climate and to our oceans right these days. Now, coming to the global plastic waste problem. The world generates 1 million tons of plastic waste every day. That's 365 million tons of plastic waste every year. Every hour, we generate 2,000 trucks of plastic waste. And only 10% of that is recycled globally. According to a McKinsey report, there will be 12 billion tons of plastic waste lying around us by 2050 if we don't do anything. Plus, the prime plastics or the virgin plastic that we use, their production is increasing by more than 3% annually, whereas the recycling rate was increasing by only 2%. That was only until 2017. After that, the recycling rate has actually decreased. In 2017, the global recycling rate used to be around 17%. Now it is less than 10%. And the bigger shock is that the developed countries around the world have far less recycling rate as compared to the developing countries. Everybody has a view that the developing countries have a lot of waste which is lying around everywhere, which is true. But in reality, they recycle their waste far much more than the developed countries. There is a very good collection and sorting system in the developed countries, let's say for the USA, for Europe, for New Zealand, Australia, everywhere. That is why you do not find those plastic waste lying around on the roads. But there is not, in fact, there is no collection and sorting system in developing countries like India, like Southeast Asia. But there is a value to that material. That's why the unorganized sector in these countries collect those materials. You won't find a plastic bottle lying around on the road in India, but you will definitely find a chips packet or what they say a gutka packet lying around, because that plastic is mixed with aluminium. It does not have value. So if any plastic that will have value as scrap, it will be get picked up in these countries. That is why they have such high recycling rate. But everything comes from the unorganized sector. That is the big challenge, because the unorganized sector have a very, very low quality of recycling. And we do not know what happens to the recycled material after that. So that is the biggest challenge. And how do we solve this problem? So there are a lot of problems that we have in terms of plastic waste. Let's discuss about how do we solve the problem. But first, we should discuss that plastic, why it is so important. According to me, according to us, we cannot live without plastic. Plastics are essential for food preservation. Plastics are needed for better medical care. Plastics ensure that the economy of fuel is there. And the plastic masks, gloves, and the PPE kits have saved thousands of lives in the ongoing pandemic. If there was no plastic mask or gloves, just imagine how the world would have been for the last 2 years. Especially in the developing countries, plastics play a huge role in ensuring that the food is not wasted that much. There's a huge amount of food wastage, especially in the rural areas in countries like India. They need more plastic to ensure that there is no food waste. So plastic is actually needed in developing countries. The per capita usage of plastics in developed countries is more than 100 kgs per year for one person. Whereas in developed countries, it is less than 10 kgs per year. So for their development, for better food conservation, for better medical care, for better economy of fuel, they need more plastics. So you have to use plastic and you cannot eliminate plastics unless there is a huge solution globally which is scalable for packaging. Right now, there is none. At least for the next 10 years, there is none. So now, as we have discussed that why global plastic recycling rate is going down. First point is there is a huge amount, tremendous amount of ignorance that is there in general public and government levels. Similarly, there are a lot of bans that are happening, especially in countries where recycling is a huge business. In Southeast Asia, in Turkey, they have banned import of plastic scrap recently. And from the 1st January of this year, there was a Basel Convention rule which was signed by 188 countries, which has further reduced the global plastic waste rate. There used to be 15 million tons of plastic waste trade in 2017, but this year it will be less than 3 million tons of plastic waste trade. There was a certain amount of dumping that was happening of plastic waste from the developed world to the developing world, but it was also helping to increase the plastic recycling rate because all the majority of the recycling factories are in these countries. And the plastic waste trade used to be the feedstock for these recycling machineries. And now these machineries, these plants are not having that good quality of plastic waste, which they can recycle. More so, these developed countries do not have a recycling or collection infrastructure. So they do not get good quality feedstock from their own countries. International plastic waste trade is very important for these developing countries. Otherwise, the recycling rate in these countries, which are at 40%, 50%, they will also go down. I will again emphasize on how the regulations are being made for Basel Convention rules. So right now, in this year, from 1st of January, we cannot ship a kg of plastic waste, a very good quality plastic waste, which can be recycled from, let's say, Belgium in Europe to India, because both the environmental authorities of both the countries have to agree on the contract that is shipping that plastic waste from one country to another. So if environment authority in a country like India is sitting in his office, he gets a letter from the Belgian environmental authority that we want to ship, let's say 20 tons of plastic waste to your country. That environmental authority person doesn't know what to react. Why are you shipping waste to my country? So he will definitely say no to it unless he knows why it is coming from. So this Basel Convention is signed by 188 countries. This was signed because of the pressure of government, of general public, which thinks that plastic is bad. Definitely more plastic is bad, but that's not the challenge. The issue of plastic waste is much more serious than being led to believe. So the real issue is collection and sorting. I have earlier I have told about that issue is not lack of recycling. So even if we collect, let's say, 50 million tons or 100 million tons of the plastic that is generated, all of it can be recycled because the recycling capacity is still there. The problem is collection and sorting of good quality plastic waste, which is not available in the market. 2 billion people in the developing world do not have access to basic waste management system. So they don't have collection and sorting facilities. And without the collection, there is not enough feedstock for the recycling in these countries. And there is a misconception globally that there is a lot of PET bottle collection that is happening. And the recycling is very good for plastics. A lot of companies are also showcasing that they are collecting so much of PET scrap, PET bottles and recycling. But PET itself is only 10% of the total plastic consumption globally. It does not include the other plastics, especially the mixed and multi-layered plastics, which are not recyclable. These plastics are not recyclable. So we have to think about how to sort out the issue of collection and sorting. Otherwise, our grandchildren will never forgive us unless we take actions now and today. Now we have to solve this mismanagement of plastic. Instead of stopping the usage of plastic, we have to create infrastructure for management of plastics. As much as we use the plastic, we need to equally manage its end of life. That is the main thing. The cost of plastic does not include the end of life cost right now. If we have to use plastic, we have to be responsible for managing that plastic waste that is created out of it. Now, cost of managing the plastic. Now, why is plastic not being managed? Why it is not being collected? Because the cost of collection and sorting is very, very high. In certain countries, it's very high. And the existing system of cost calculation, like I am a plastic producer, I will never include the cost of collection, sorting, and the entire circular economy chain that happens after the waste is generated. So that's, we are calling it as external cost. The external cost is never taken into account in the cost calculation by the plastic producing companies or the brands. Plastic waste is not managed well because the cost of managing is not paid by these brands, the plastic producers. Now, how is plastic different from other commodities? How are the other commodities taking care of this external cost? For steel industry, if we recycle 1 ton of steel, it is actually a feedstock for steel industry. Similarly, for paper industry, if we recycle 1 ton of paper scrap, it will be a feedstock for the paper industry. But if we recycle 1 ton of plastic waste, it is actually 1 ton of virgin plastic less that will be produced. So the intentions or the incentive for an industry like plastic or plastic producers is completely opposite to the recycling industry for plastic. But for the steel and paper industry, it's same. For steel, the ore and the scrap is the feedstock for the steel industry. For paper, pulp and paper scrap is the feedstock for paper industry. So this is the biggest difference between plastic and the other materials. So plastic is going to be here all along. The production of virgin plastic has increased from 400 million tons to 1100 million tons in the next 30 years. Petrochemical companies have invested more than $200 billion last year to increase their capacity of plastic production. The whole world is going towards electric vehicles. Fossil fuel production and consumption will go down definitely. Plastics, or virgin plastics for that matter, gives the biggest opportunity for petrochemical companies. And they have planned to increase it hugely in the next 30 years. They will push virgin plastics globally. The investment will be huge in virgin plastic, and the investment in recycling, especially collection, is very, very low as compared to the investment in the virgin plastics. And the COVID pandemic may be a topic of plastic, and the COVID pandemic might actually make this whole thing take a backseat. Sustainability is a big agenda. It was a big agenda in COP26 recently also. It will be a big agenda next year also. But plastic as a whole is not at a place where it should be. It is a big, big problem globally. So now why the investment is not happening in plastic circular economy? First of all, investment is only happening in recycling technology. It's not happening in collection and sorting because it's comparatively easier to put money in startups or recycling technologies that are coming in the market. especially in chemical recycling. A lot of petrochemical companies are putting a lot of money in chemical recycling. Chemical recycling definitely has to work. Otherwise things won't work in future. And also, only mechanical recycling has the capacity to recycle maybe 6 million tons or 8 million tons or maybe 10 million tons of plastic waste a year. So chemical recycling has to come. But chemical recycling is at least 10 years ahead. There is not a single project that has been scalable or economically feasible around the world. So it will take at least 10 years to come to the forum. Similarly, nobody is realizing that even if chemical recycling comes into foray and they solve the plastic problems, let's say globally, the collection and sorting will still be the main problem. Chemical recycling will always need good quality feedstock for recycling. That is not happening. The focus is always on recycling, not on collection and sorting. The bigger problem with collection and sorting is you cannot invest big money. You cannot invest 10 million tons, 50 million tons, or 100 million tons in collection and sorting projects. It's such a fragmented industry, especially in the developing countries. We have a plant in Mumbai, which is just 100-ton capacity plant for a month. We are not getting 100 tons of plastic waste to recycle. You cannot invest in a 2,000 tons or 3,000 tons a month plant in developing countries. You do not have collection and sorting recycling system there. So investing $10 million or $50 million or $100 million in these countries is not possible. So you have to invest smaller ticket amounts, let's say $50,000, $100,000. So that becomes a much bigger task for investors and big investment firms to do it. That is why the banks, the global PE firms are not investing in these small recycling industries and in these collection and sorting sectors. That is why no new technology will work without proper collection and sorting infrastructure. Now, the whole finance world is held back by small ticket size of investment opportunities in plastic recycling. So this is all the bad items that I'm talking about. Now, what about what is good in the entire thing? How can we make the plastic waste management projects self-sustainable? So these are the main ideas which a lot of countries, a lot of governments are trying to implement to make plastic waste management system self-sustainable. First is the extended producer responsibility. Europe has been a pioneer in extended producer responsibility, which a lot of countries are using the best practices of Europe to create their own EPR system, extended producer responsibility system. In EPR or extended producer responsibility, a producer or a brand owner which has put plastic in the market has to collect that much of plastic and get it recycled, again put back in the system as circular economy. They have to pay the entire price of the extended producer responsibility. This is a system which has been very successful in Europe. That is why they have a higher recycling rate of 30 to 33%. But with time, they have been able to create this process in the last 15 years. But now they have reached a limitation because the extended producer responsibility system comes after the waste has been generated. So the plastic producers or the brand owners are responsible only after the waste has been generated. How can we have a system, which I have mentioned in the fourth point, to collect the funds in advance by the way of levy or tax to finance the collection and sorting? Though this will be one of the most difficult tasks to do, because when you put plastic in the market, let's say a petrochemical company sells plastic to a brand in Europe or in anywhere in the world, they have to pay an additional plastic tax or plastic levy to finance the collection and sorting that will have to happen at the end of life of that plastic. That will create the entire financing system for collection and sorting of plastics. That is the way we can have a global system of plastic waste management. But EPR is playing its role, especially in Europe and the developing countries where they are creating a system for EPR. Another way is to put premium on the recycled plastics. Now, as I said, virgin plastics production will go from 400 million tons to 1,100 million tons in the next 30 years. The petrochemical companies are producing so much of virgin plastics, the rates are not as competitive as recycled plastics. Recycled plastics are very, very, very low value right now as compared to the virgin plastics. The governments around the world have to put a premium on recycled plastics. They have to put a premium to ensure that everybody purchases recycled plastics with a premium which can finance the entire circular economy chain that is behind it. Additionally, the government has to make mandatory use of a certain amount of a certain percentage of recycled plastic in the products. Otherwise, the premium on the recycled plastics will never have a market to obey with. So these two things have to go side by side. The last thing is the carbon credits for recycling. It's a surprise to everyone in the world that knowing that plastic recycling, or for that matter, any recycling, saves a lot of CO2, but none of the plastic recycling projects globally are having access to carbon credits. If in future, and hopefully by after the COP26, there is a system that is made where these carbon credits are globally traded, this can finance the entire system of plastic recycling and collection. It is the collection, as I said earlier, it is the collection that needs funding and financing. We have to monetize this collection to ensure that we have a good plastic waste management system globally. Now, I present this as an extraordinary time arbitrage opportunity that we have. Plastic recycling business presents an extraordinary time arbitrage opportunity for the investors. It's 100% certainty that there will be a compensation for the collection cost or the external cost that is going to happen because of plastics. It can be either in terms of plastic tax or a levy or EPR, as we already know. If it doesn't happen, then the market will force us to pay it as carbon credits. And the value of carbon credits will converge to the amount of external costs that are there. So this is almost a near certainty. We have to monetize this certainty and we have to capitalize on this arbitrage opportunity. That is why I say that this is actually a huge opportunity for the global investors to cash in. So plastic is actually a problem. Plastic waste is a very big problem. It is also a very, very big opportunity which is going to come in the next 30 years. I will close my presentation with a small quotation of our company, that waste is not waste until it is wasted. On the contrary, it's a resource full of opportunity. Thanks a lot.